Puka Nacua is on IR. Chris Olave was a no-show in week 1, and now we have Christian McCaffrey missing the game last night. Your fantasy teams have been thrown through a complete loop, and we have to figure out how to solve it. Luckily, we've done some research, and we're going to tell you how to save your fantasy football season today. Let's start with the Puka Nacua injury. It came out during a live stream. We were sitting there, and we're like, oh, man, Puka has a PCL sprain, and then it was Puka's on IR. And so Puka is going to miss at least 4 games. This is significant. And I say this is significant because this is a knee injury that Puka Nacua suffered in the preseason and obviously kept him out for a while. A lot of people were just kind of like, yeah, he'll be back for week 1, but he re-aggravated it, and now it comes out, that it's PCL, and he's going to be on IR. Even if Puka Nacua returns after 4 weeks, there is a better than decent chance that Puka Nacua is not the Puka Nacua we saw last year. And this is unfortunate. It has nothing to do with Cooper Kupp or the situation or anything like that, and it's just an unfortunate injury that lingers and tends to take a long time to come back from. And so when you're looking at what you should be doing, if you have Puka Nacua on your team and now he is on your IR, a lot of people are asking, do we buy, do we sell, do we hold on Puka Nacua? I saw a lot of deals go down when we were doing our live stream that were suggesting to me that you can still get pretty freaking good value for Puka Nacua. If you can get even decent value for Puka, and I'm talking about you getting a player in return that's in the 3rd round.
Like a Debo.
Like a Debo. Yeah, I saw one with Nico, and I was like, Nico? Anybody like that. If you're getting anybody like that in a deal for Puka Nacua, you're making that deal.
Because not only are you getting a guy that, maybe he has less upside than Puka Nacua does in theory, but you're also getting 4 to 6 games of guaranteed production. Like you're sacrificing 6 games if you're just holding Puka rather than like technically down tiering to a 3rd round guy like Nico. Like
let's put ourselves in this situation. You probably lost week 1 because Puka was your 1st or 2nd round pick, and you didn't have him do anything in week 1 for the most part. And now you are missing him for the next 4 weeks. It's going to be week 6 and you're going to have gone 5 whole weeks without your 1st or 2nd round startup draft pick. And you're going to be at a point where you're probably going to need that production. You might be at the point of no return at that point. Right. After 5 weeks in week 6, week 6
that's when people start freaking out.
People are either freaking out or checking out, one of the two.
You better hope that you're 500 at that point.
And so with Puka Nacua, I think you hold him if you have the depth, but if you can get anything of value, he's a sell. He is, and it's just because there's a lot of, and we are the biggest Puka fans out there. There's a lot of risk holding a guy with a lingering knee injury like that.
And here's part of the reason we're saying that right now in heading into week 2 is generally what you see with players that are on IR, the further removed they get from that injury, the less valuable they become because people realize how valuable those points in their starting lineup are right now. So I think that even though we're saying Puka Nacua is in theory a sell right now, if you can get a really good guy like that was going originally in the 3rd or 4th round pre-draft or pre-season, I think Puka Nacua could easily be a buy in 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
He definitely could be.
And so when you're looking at, kind of from the Rams situation, who's going to fill the void there and should you target that person? Tyler Johnson is going to be the guy that fills the void there. He was the guy that was backing up Puka Nacua before Puka got hurt, and you saw him get a couple snaps even when Puka was in the rotation last night. And then when Puka went out, it was Tyler Johnson that did step up and play that same position that Puka was playing. He had 51 snaps and ran 33 routes. He had 7 targets last night. I did not realize Kupp had 21 targets. By the way, if you have Kupp... If Kupp stays healthy, he's a league winner again. Here we are again, which is pretty crazy, but he's going to be a league winner. And so Tyler Johnson's going to be a hot waiver guy. I would definitely go out and spend some waiver dollars on Tyler Johnson. Didn't make it in our video this week for the playbook because we recorded it during Sunday Night Football, but he's definitely going to be a guy I think that you need to consider spending some serious waiver dollars on because he had 7 targets. He ended up having almost 10 fantasy points last night. And so I do think there is always room in this offense for somebody else to be productive. With that being said, the number 1 beneficiary from this injury on this offense is going to be Colby Parkinson. And so Colby Parkinson is even bigger in a market now where tight ends are not looking good at all. Colby Parkinson's a really good pickup on waivers. Both of those guys expect them to take steps up, be good targets on waivers, but this is a tough situation.
What do you think about Demarcus Robinson? Because he's got the pre-established experience there in a Sean McVay offense.
So Robinson is a guy that was already starting. It was Kupp, Robinson, and Puka. And so, with Robinson, I feel like you kind of know more or less what he is. And with Tyler Johnson, I feel like since it's more of an unknown and because he was more efficient last night with the targets he did get, because they got the same amount of targets.
He had that one 50-yard reception, and then outside of that, it was the exact same type of production as Demarcus Robinson.
And I get that. Again, that's why I think Colby Parkinson's actually the biggest beneficiary here.
I would agree there.
And so I think if anything, it means Colby Parkinson's going to be a must pick up.
And probably an even split across the board between Robinson, Johnson, and even Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington. Like McVay's probably just going to do his thing. And target Cup 20 times like he did yesterday, and then do whatever with the remaining receivers.
Cup is a hold, and Puka's probably going to be a soft sell for us, unfortunately. But real quick, we are dedicated to bringing you high-quality analysis, high production quality, and bring you entertaining and informative fantasy football advice. We are really, really trying to do that. It would really help us out if you dropped a like and subscribed if you haven't joined the channel. Really supports what we're trying to do here, and we really appreciate it. So thank you. But let's get back to it. Yeah. Let's pivot to Chris Olave now. A lot of Olave questions in our comments recently.
Too many Olave questions, in my opinion. I think that, look, I have not been a huge fan of Chris Olave coming into the season. I didn't love taking him in the middle to the end of the second round. I think there were too many questions. I think there are too many questions in New Orleans offensively with Derek Carr and how mediocre he is, how good he looks at the beginning of the season, and then just perpetually declines as the season progresses. And that would directly impact Chris Olave and what he's able to do from a production perspective. But they go into their first week, they play the Carolina Panthers, and they post 47 points, and Olave doesn't really do anything. He doesn't get any of those points or any of that production in a game where, quite frankly, he should have. That said, I think people are freaking out a little bit about Chris Olave and kind of jumped the gun a bit because we're just now realizing that this is sort of a volatile situation. Like, why did we not know that beforehand? Why did we not know that it was kind of going to be a crapshoot week in and week out with Chris Olave? I mean, I think that it's going to be better than a crapshoot with Olave because he still remains the wide receiver one. Rashid Shaheed puts up 16 points. He gets a touchdown. Juwan Johnson gets a touchdown. Foster Moreau gets a touchdown. Alvin Kamara is the same old Alvin Kamara. Like, who do you think is going to get a majority of the volume there from a week-to-week perspective? It's always going to be Chris Olave, and you saw that in his snaps. You saw that in his routes run. He only got 2 targets, yes, but he was at the top in every single metric. 52 snaps, which was comfortably over every single receiver there, other than Foster Moreau, which is hilarious, who also had 51 snaps. But to me, this is an easy buy. In my opinion, if you can get Chris Olave at a significant discount, because he is going at a significant discount, people are considering, should I even start him next week? Should I go sell him for a guy who went in the 5th, 6th round who showed out? No. If you own Chris Olave, you're holding him. And if you don't own Chris Olave and you have some need at wide receiver, like, hey, I just lost Puka Nacua on my team, let me go get Chris Olave at a discount and see if I can't, get him for a pretty good price, because it's very, very possible right now people are freaking out about Olave.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, the best practice here is going to be patient. There's no injury here. If anything, I'm slightly encouraged with Chris Olave after yesterday, because actually, for once, Derek Carr didn't look like absolute complete butt cheeks. He just looked like minimal butt cheeks.
Against the worst team in the NFL.
Exactly. So, again, I'm not saying he looked great, but he looked like he could maybe make some throws that get Chris Olave some production. And so, that's not a terrible sign in my opinion. But with that being said, he's a guy we just need to be patient on, I feel like. And with Travis Etienne, it's kind of the same thing. This is a guy, I'll tell you right off the bat, that Nathan and I are going to say to hold. And this is going to be because with Travis Etienne, he did have, I think 11 points in half PPR leagues yesterday is what it ended up being. But with that being said, he was like a dumb fumble away or dumb non-fumble away from having 20 points yesterday. And a lot of people are very concerned about these. He did have 10.9 points. He had 12 carries for 44 yards, while Tank Bigsby, on the other hand, who we talked about in our waivers video, had 12 carries for 73 yards. Now, Travis Etienne did see all the targets out of that backfield, but there were only 3 of them for 15 yards, and he did lose a fumble. Now, with that being said, I think what people are most concerned about, A, he did only put up, 11 points, but B, Tank Bigsby really cut into his workload and also led the team in rushing yards. And so, to be fair, Etienne was the primary running back in pretty much every valuable situation. That's red zone.
That's the key.
That's red zone. That's early downs. He outsnapped Tank Bigsby in early downs. He outsnapped him on the goal line. Third downs, it was 7-1 in terms of snaps. And so we'll put this chart on the screen here. And so I do think that people are overreacting a little bit to this. Yeah, Tank Bigsby was efficient behind Travis Etienne. But most of the time when you have a running back backing up a guy like that, the running back to the change of pace back is going to be efficient. Especially a guy who, when you're talking about where did most of Tank Bigsby's production come from, where did most of his snaps come from, it came on early downs. Short yardage, he got 2, Etienne got 2. But again, every 2-minute drill, goal line, early downs, and third downs, it was all Etienne. And so Etienne is getting every valuable touch there. With that being said, If Tank Bigsby were to step in and start taking goal line work, that's a different story. I don't expect that to happen. And so because of that, I'm not freaking out on ETN. Let's see a couple weeks sample size. He's always a guy. ETN's always been a guy that could put up weeks like this. But again, I feel like if this is maybe ETN's floor, like, and last year's floor was lower. So I'm not freaking out. I think Nathan would agree. Let's just hold ETN. Let's stay put with him on our rosters, and let's not sell him in fantasy football.
We didn't expect Marvin Harrison Jr. to do a ton week 1, but he did even less than we thought he would in his debut in the NFL. He had 3 targets, only hauled in 1 for 4 yards. That's not going to cut it for a first-round wide receiver, a rookie first-round wide receiver that many people invested in. I will say that this is one of the biggest reasons that I was not an advocate for taking Marvin Harrison Jr. at price and even Malik Neighbors at price so high in fantasy drafts before the season started, because I knew that the risk of them starting slow would result in their value falling way further than their original price before the season started. And you can now get Marvin Harrison Jr. already at a discount. I mean, we were just doing a live stream where people were involving Marvin Harrison Jr. in trades to get Rashee Rice, because Rashee Rice looks so good, looks so safe, looks so consistent, got all the targets that you really expected a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. to get in an offense that is wide open for him. I mean, Kyler Murray had 31 passing attempts in that game against Buffalo. They put up 28 points. There was plenty of volume to go around, and Marv just didn't get it. It was McBride with 9 targets. It was Greg Dortch with 8. It was a bunch of running backs getting some dump-offs here and there. Michael Wilson getting that red zone target for the touchdown. Everyone except Marvin Harrison Jr. That said, I'm not panicking about Marvin Harrison Jr. We did a video before the season started. Heading into week 1, we said, this is the time where you want to start monitoring rookie wide receivers that failed to produce in the first couple weeks of the season, that you know without a shadow of a doubt have incredible high upside talent, just like Marvin Harrison Jr. This is when you want to monitor those guys and their prices, and this is the time where you start exploring offers to go get them on your team, because the fantasy community should be reacting in the opposite way. They should start lower on a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. heading into the season and then get higher on him as the season progresses. Why are we getting lower on him because he started slow? I really don't understand it. To me, Marvin Harrison Jr., if you own him, he is easily a hold. If you do not own Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm not going guns a-blazing to go get him right now on my team, because I think there still could be a couple weeks where he's starting to get eased into his role. But I would keep monitoring Marvin Harrison Jr. and his price in your league, and if you can get a good enough bargain for him, you may be able to capitalize now. If not, probably in a week or 2.
Obviously, one of the biggest storylines from the Thursday night game, from the first game of the NFL season, was Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews specifically. And so people have asked, what are we doing with Mark Andrews? Is Mark Andrews dead? What do we think of all this? And there's some really interesting numbers when you get into the actual usage data here. Isaiah Likely played a bigger role in this game than he played when Mark Andrews was healthy before, pretty much ever. In last season, and this is from PFF, Andrews was playing 75% of the offensive snaps when he's healthy, and Likely was only playing about 7 to 35% in those games. And when Likely took over at the end, he was playing about 75% when Mark Andrews was out. And so the difference here, and what you saw a lot of, and what I think you're going to see a ton of from the Ravens this year, is they played a lot of 12 personnel where Likely and Andrews were both on the field. And so with that being said, they're both going to be on the field more. Likely is going to eat into his targets, and that is concerning for Mark Andrews. However, again, the way that Isaiah Likely was being used, I don't think it eliminates the possibility for fantasy production from Mark Andrews. If you drafted Mark Andrews this year, drafted him in the 4th, 5th round. And the other thing is, I think immediately after this week, I don't think you're getting anything worth selling Mark Andrews for. People are so low on him. And so, again, even in 11 personnel, Likely was in there a little bit. You had him in there in 22 personnel with Charlie Kolar. And so I get why people are concerned. I totally understand. And if you are really concerned enough to where you think you have to sell, then I think you do it after week 3 or 4 when you actually see Mark Andrews produce. Because Mark Andrews can and will produce with Likely on the field like this. There is room in an offense like this for a guy like Likely, who, again, can line up in the slot and can get wide receiver-esque targets and dump downs, and Mark Andrews, who's playing more of a traditional tight end, who was, in his defense, being pretty heavily guarded the entire night, right? Also being used to block because, the Chiefs were lighting them up.
Look, if we learned anything from that Thursday night game, it's that style of play for the Ravens is not sustainable, and they will not continue to play that way for the rest of the year. You cannot win games by just doing a bunch of behind the line of scrimmage targets all day to Zay Flowers and your running backs, like they're going to have to utilize Mark Andrews. They're going to have to, or they are going to struggle. So if you think that the Ravens are going to struggle and continue to do what they did on Thursday, and Lamar is going to be running all over the place, like, that's fine, I guess. I just don't think that's realistic for the entire season.
And they also probably passed more in that game than they will most of the entire season. They're a very run-heavy team normally, but with the way that game was kind of playing out, they ended up passing the ball quite a bit. Even if the ADOT was low, I think that a lot of Isaiah Likely's targets were close targets or dump downs or checks. Like,
right.
I mean, I think
he's not necessarily a possession wide receiver that you're leaning on. Mark Andrews is kind of like that, and Zay Flowers is like that when they are running the ball first, which they need to get to to win games.
So the answer is hold Mark Andrews, and your waiver should process tomorrow. If you can get Likely, get him.
Yeah,
go get him. I'd say that for every team, but especially if you have Andrews.
Yep. Cooper Kupp. It's time to talk about Cooper Kupp, because I think you have a lot of people that are owners of Cooper Kupp that invested in him in the 3rd, 4th rounds because of his potential upside, even playing alongside Puka Nacua. Now Puka Nacua is down, out for a significant amount of time, and Cooper Kupp gets 21 targets in his first game. I mean, this was like a vintage Cooper Kupp game against the Detroit Lions. It wasn't enough for them to win the game, but it was enough for you to win your fantasy week because of Cooper Kupp pretty much alone. It was awesome to see. It was really fun to watch him and Stafford connect like that again. We haven't seen that really consistently since 2022. But with Cooper Kupp, I think it's simple. If you own Cooper Kupp, congratulations. You may have just found the biggest league winner because of the Puka Nacua injury.
Yep.
At least until Puka's back, then we can reevaluate. That guy's going to carry you barring injury. I cannot go as far as saying sell, because I know people are going to be interested in going and purchasing Cooper Kupp because of Puka being out. I wouldn't even entertain the offers.
Oh, no.
Not with 21 targets. Like this guy, he automatically has top 3 wide receiver upside now.
No, I mean, nobody is selling him. If you can buy him, you buy him. But if you have him, oh my gosh, he'll die on my roster. Yeah, he's a league winner this year. He's a league winner. You got him in the 2nd, 3rd round. Like he'll do it for you.
Yep.
Let's go back to the Thursday night game. Let's talk about Xavier Worthy now. And Xavier Worthy is interesting. Obviously, he outscored from a fantasy points perspective. He outscored Rashee Rice. When you're looking at the utilization, Rashee Rice played 42 snaps to Xavier Worthy's 34. Xavier Worthy was the clear wide receiver 2 there, which I think is encouraging. And I think he can maintain that once Hollywood Brown comes back. So I'm not worried about that at all. They ran the same amount of routes, and Rashee Rice had 3 times the amount of targets that Xavier Worthy did. And so that's really where we're kind of concerned. I'm going to say it like this. If Xavier Worthy on your fantasy football team, and this is going to depend on where you drafted him, because if you're playing an ESPN Yahoo league, you drafted Xavier Worthy late enough to where he's probably functioning as like a flex plug-in play guy. That's what he's perfect for, because weeks like these where he doesn't need, he only had 4 touches and he scored 2 touchdowns and he had almost 20 fantasy points. Those are the type of players that I really like, having the option to plug in my flex spots against like really bad defenses or what perceived to be really good matchups. Yep. If you're using Xavier Worthy as that, I like it. If Xavier Worthy is your 2nd or 3rd starting wide receiver every single week, I'm entertaining offers for Xavier Worthy because I do think you can get not only safer, higher floor options, but I think options that have high upside as well. There are definitely some guys that you could entertain with Xavier Worthy prices that you could get, and they would have also some high upside. And it's just going to depend. I can't confidently tell you who those guys are because it's so league to league dependent on what the market is for Xavier Worthy. And it's dependent on your league mates and the league economy. And in fantasy football, it's a lot less predictable than Dynasty in the sense that there are so many different types of players, so many different levels of experienced players. Somebody might sell Xavier Worthy after seeing him in week 1 for who freaking knows in a home league. Like you might go get a 2nd, 3rd round wide receiver for him. But I do think if you have the luxury of having him as like a plug and play flex guy, I'm holding him because I don't think there's any need to like just sell high for the sake of selling high. I think that's stupid.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I do think, and I kind of want your opinion on this. I do think if you have him as like one of your starting wide receivers, I think I'm going to go get a safer guy with higher target upside.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Rashee Rice is going to command too many of those targets. Travis Kelce is going to bounce back, and they're going to continue to run Pacheco into the ground because they found a lot of success doing that last year. not to mention Hollywood Brown coming back as well.
Exactly.
So I just think there's safer options out there. Totally agree. And let's pivot over to another rookie wide receiver that had a way slower start than Xavier Worthy. Not a ton of exciting stuff coming out of Chicago. Yes, they got the win. Caleb Williams looked like a rookie quarterback. Rome Odunze looked like a rookie wide receiver. Keenan Allen was the lead receiver there, and it still wasn't pretty, and DJ Moore got banged up as well. But with Rome Odunze, news just came out that he has a grade 1 MCL sprain, which according to Google, the best doctor out there, is Dr. Google, a mild sprain that occurs when the ligament is stretched beyond its comfort level and becomes inflamed. He's probably going to miss like a week or two because there really is no reason for him to be out there and risk re-aggravating this over the next couple of weeks because he's got to develop. They have DJ Moore, they have Keenan Allen, they have DeAndre Swift in the backfield, and they're a young team. And Rome Odunze is their future at the wide receiver position alongside DJ Moore paired with Caleb Williams. So from a fantasy perspective, this just sucks for you if you own Rome Odunze because honestly, it's going to take a while for him to come back and get probably a significant amount of volume and opportunity. It's going to take a few weeks. And in that time, Rome Odunze is going to become less and less valuable. If you have someone that's interested in buying Rome Odunze, which I don't really understand why they would be, then I would definitely entertain the offer and see if you can't go and get a guy that's going to contribute to you in your flex spots right now while Rome Odunze is dealing with this injury. But other than that, you're kind of stuck holding him. I'm probably not selling him away for like a discount because, again, how good is the discount going to be at this point with his current price and how poor his volume was to begin the season? He's kind of just... I'm kind of neutral on Odunze right now. I think that Keenan Allen and DJ Moore are going to get a majority of the volume this season.
And it's definitely not, I mean, and I would even, to that last point, I would say this. It didn't appear in this game to be a volume thing, right? Because when he pretty much split time with Keenan Allen. Like, they pretty much split their time exactly. Yeah. But the difference is, even though from a on-the-field standpoint, you saw Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen splitting time almost exactly, they ran almost the same amount of routes, I think, 28 to 26. Actually, Rome Odunze ran 2 more routes.
It's the
Keenan,
targets.
And Keenan Allen got 5 more targets.
I know.
Him.
And
so the other portion of this I want to kind of point out is the Bears only ran 56 plays this week, and also the passing game is going to have to be better, or you shouldn't even be talking about 3 wide receivers in this offense.
Absolutely
in my
not.
I mean, I don't think there's any room for even 2 wide receivers to be like a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 right now. Like,
would you go as far as saying sell Rome Odunze, or do you think it's not really worth it right now?
I mean, I think it's going to be largely dependent on what your league is doing in your league market. I would say if there are people that are higher on Rome Odunze, yeah, entertain offers for him.
Yeah.
You might have to hold. You don't want to sell low. Again, you drafted in the 6th round. You don't want to turn around and sell your 6th round draft pick in a fantasy league after 1 week and after a small injury. That's stupid. But if you can go get somebody who is being drafted equivalent to Rome Odunze and basically get a reroll, that I'm for. And again, it's going to depend on what your league, and again, not every league is created equal. You might say in the comments, oh, this is not going to happen in my league, and this would never happen, and you play with rookies if that's... And guys, I'll stress to you again, I'll stress this all season, not every league is your league, and we have people who play in the most competitive leagues that watch our channel, and people who play in the least competitive leagues you can imagine, home leagues, where people don't know what they're doing playing with their grandma on our channel. And so we cater to all of that, and so it's going to depend on what your specific league is, but we'd be happy to answer any trade questions you have if you do have some potential offers. Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey. This is a big one. Obviously didn't play last night. That sucked. Lost me a matchup. Probably won Mason his matchup in the Flock League, which pisses me off to no end. But with that being said, there's really no option. This is a really short blurb right here. You're stuck with Christian McCaffrey, and this is not a long-term injury, from what I understand. There's not a chance you can sell Christian McCaffrey, because essentially, I mean, if you give him away at any of a discount, you're gonna stack somebody else's team in your league, and if he ends up hitting and you sell him, it might lose you the league. You just can't. There's too much risk associated with it. And that's the sucky part, and that was the sucky part about picking 101 this year. You felt like you have to take Christian McCaffrey there, but you understand that there's a little bit of risk there now with his injury history and with him getting up there in age. And so it sucks, and I understand it sucks, and that's why the 101, we didn't like it a lot this year. But I feel like if you drafted Christian McCaffrey, you stick to Christian McCaffrey, you're stuck with Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey, odds are, he's still going to win you leagues. And so definitely don't react to his injury. I know it sucks. You probably lost your week 1 matchup, but we're hoping Christian McCaffrey's back really soon. Hoping this is a short-term thing, and you definitely got to hold him on your fantasy team. So
yeah, I think Raheem Mostert was probably one of the biggest disappointments of week 1, getting 6 carries to Achan's 10, getting 3 targets to Achan's 7, Achan getting the goal line carry, the lone goal line carry for ending up with like 19.5 points. Mostert, 3. I mean, we were expecting Mostert, who's the bigger guy, to get all of the goal line usage, all of the red zone usage, or most of the red zone usage, because he, again, is just the bigger guy, and he got all that usage last year. Devon Achane, his opportunity, in theory, kind of has to be limited a little bit anyways. Less is more with him, not only because of injury risk, but because he is so explosive, and fresh legs, throwing him in there every other play is just great for that offense. But he was able to capitalize and just be the Devon Achane that we know and love from last year before the injury. And Mostert is left with a bunch of question marks. I still stand by Mostert being a pretty good value at the moment. I think a lot of people are so excited about Achane and what he's able to offer for that offense that they're totally overlooking Mostert at this point again. So you are going to be able to get Raheem Mostert at a significant discount in a lot of leagues because he really didn't do much in this game. I will tell you that this game is not really the benchmark that you're looking at for Miami rest of season when it comes to their offensive production. They scored 2 touchdowns total. It was an ugly game. Tua was missing throws. Waddle was banged up. Tyreek Hill really didn't even do much until he got that huge breakaway touchdown. It was ugly. I don't think it's going to be this ugly every single week. They're going to keep figuring things out and get the rust off the wheels. And I think Mostert isn't just going to completely fall off, right? Is he going to have 20 touchdowns again like he did last year, leading the league in touchdowns? Probably not. If he gets 60 to 70% of that, he is a flex option every single week, and that's still a pretty good price. So if you can get him at a good discount right now, I would capitalize. He's not just completely dead in the water. He's still going to get plenty of opportunity.
And the one thing I think you could be concerned about with Mostert, and we talked about this, and you mentioned this, was last year, Raheem Mostert took 33 of 42 of the possible snaps inside 3 yards.
Yep.
And there were only 2 of them this game, and Achane got them both. That could be a big thing. So then here's the running back usage, and you can kind of look at this as but the goal line, Achane won. Third downs, Achane won. Those are the 2 things we really like to look at for fantasy production.
Yep.
And so
it was the other way last year.
I know.
So.
And so I am a little bit concerned as somebody who championed Mostert and has Mostert on my
But
rosters.
again, that's kind of the reason why Mostert is so cheap right now. And if you can get him, you may as well just take the shot, especially if you have need at running back, which a lot of people do at the moment.
It's not like Achane doesn't have any injury risk either.
Exactly. So. He literally left the game in the middle of the game, questionable, with another injury. He ended up coming back. But again, that's just going to be a discussion. He's got that ankle injury on the report this week as well.
So I hope this helps. I hope this helps clear up some of the injury concerns and helps clear up some of the things that are happening on our fantasy rosters right now. Do us a huge favor. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. And also, if you would subscribe if you haven't, we'd really appreciate that. We're a smaller channel. We just started last year, but we're trying to grow this thing. We're trying to invest in our production and the quality of our videos. And so we would appreciate it if you supported our channel doing those 2 things. You can head over to flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain, choose the annual Mother Flocker tier, and you get all of our tools to win your fantasy leagues, rankings, my teams, start sit tool. But you also get a team blueprint from us for your fantasy football team. You can also get one of those on the site without being a member. So like I said, flockfantasy.com/domain. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you later.